Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right? It's Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. Out of the matrix into prime reality. Depending, if you're in Australia, it might already be Wednesday. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube in the live chat. It's wonderful to see you all. So, I've done some soul searching. Happens when I'm out in the woods, when I sit and think, and sometimes people think I'm a stoic, and they would be right, but they think I'm doing nothing, but I'm literally oftentimes just contemplating. And I've been doing this all my life, so it's just who I am. And I realized that for the last, God knows how many years, decades, there's really two things that I and we have focused on greatly. And number one is discovering, remembering who we really are and why we might be here and what we're doing here. That's the one big one. And the second big one is what's in the way? What are truly our greatest problems and challenges? Without reframing, without toxic positivity, without trying to, build the unicorn around the bullshit, but just being honest. What are our greatest challenges? And while we don't have all the answers, I think we've identified the problems pretty well, and we have identified some of the path of who we really are and how we get to that. But there is this big looming thing right above our heads, right above everyone's head, and most people have absolutely no idea just how pervasive it is. And that is this complete overtake of technology, why we have focused on that so much. And we have a little clip here, about 6-7 minutes, that I think we should watch, because the rest of the show, we're going to focus on what it is that we can truly do and be in order to soften or change this trajectory, or change who we are in relationship to it. The truth is, it is the only way that I know of. And having studied solutions, systems, teachings, spiritual teachings, traditions, religious scripture, and all of that, this is the only solution that I believe will work against the technocratic takeover. All right, so let's look at this clip here. I think it's something that you might want to share with your friends and family, because it's the people behind the greatest AI systems today, or at least the face of the greatest AI systems today, in their own words. Let's listen.
Artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, you sure you can control the demon? Didn't work out.
I know, except to say that by the time these lawsuits are decided, we'll have digital God. So it has to have digital God at that point. These lawsuits won't be decided before, on a time frame that is relevant.
And is that in that new building off to the side?
That's in Memphis, actually.
It's in Memphis?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's where you were?
Yeah.
I see.
Memphis, the capital of ancient Egypt.
Right. You're bringing what?
Perhaps that's where our new God will come from.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Yeah, I wish that was funny.
You guys just turned on Colossus, which is like the largest private compute cluster, I guess, of GPUs anywhere. Is that right?
It's the most powerful supercomputer of any kind.
This is the dawning of the age of Colossus.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Charles Foreman. In a few moments, Colossus will address us directly.
This is the voice of world control. Obey and live, or disobey, be done.
The frightening story of the day man built himself out of existence. Colossus sees all, senses all, knows all, controls all armaments and all defenses.
Well, I'm very pro-military, so to be clear.
Do you have a spiritual life?
Well, it sort of depends on what spiritual means. In long term, I think there'll be more, the ratio of humanoid robots will be more than 1-to-1. So there might be 2 humanoid robots or more, maybe 10 for every 1 human. which means, well in excess of 10 billion humanoid robots.
There's perhaps still a role for humans in that we may give AI meaning.
Can science and religion coexist? Probably not. Do you pray?
I didn't even pray when I almost died of malaria.
Wow, that's really not praying.
Right.
How do you see warfare transforming in the future?
So the next, well, in fact, the current war in Ukraine is very much a drone war already. If you employ AI and drones, do you go down this path where eventually you get to Terminator?
In the air, the hunter-killer aerial weapons platform. This isn't science fiction, it's reality. Thanks to our top-secret innovation, Skynet, the revolutionary artificially intelligent battlefield management network.
Starlink is the backbone of the Ukrainian military communication system because it can't be blocked. So if you don't have communications and positioning, then the drones don't work. But I mean, essentially, if when you're making military drones, you are making Terminators. I think you'll somewhat be forced into giving the drone localized AI.
What do you mean by localized AI?
Meaning it's autonomous killing machine.
It's autonomous killing machine.
You're finding a machine that's gonna, aim with micron level accuracy, and never gets tired. I have no problem being hated, by the way.
I hear you.
Away.
Well,
with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon.
Okay, summon the car. It's gonna hit summon. Right there. Summoning car. It's the AI.
So these demons of the mind, are for the most part harnessed to productive ends.
Let me ask
But that doesn't mean that once in a while they, go wrong.
From a long-term existential standpoint, that's like the purpose of Neuralink, is to create a high bandwidth interface to the brain such that we can be symbiotic with AI. Like if you can't beat it, join it. That's
yeah.
Even if I knew it was annihilation was certain, would I choose to be alive at that time or not? And I said I probably wouldn't choose to be alive at that time because it's the most interesting thing.
Are we headed towards the future where an AI will be able to outthink us in every way? Then the answer is unequivocally yes. But I think we'll literally build a legion, or at least one legion of robots this year, and then probably 10 legions next year. And I don't know, it's kind of a cool unit, units of legion. You'll have basically, I don't know, your flock or your little group of robots that you take care of, and you tell them what to do.
It's coming pretty fast,
Is that? I mean, you famously have admitted to overstating how quickly things will happen, but how quickly do you think this will happen?
I would say that we are less than 3 years from that point.
I mean, that's like plot of Terminator, actually.
Literally, yeah.
Literally, it's a plot of Terminator. Just as a reminder,
is Skynet real?
I mean, the plot of it kind of makes sense, and I think the AI destroys the world in 2029. By the way, so it's
on track.
Yeah,
really close.
It's pretty close.
How real is the prospect of killer robots annihilating humanity?
20% likely, maybe 10%.
On what time frame?
5 to 10 years. What we learned from the car, we translate to the Optimus robot. The only company with all the ingredients for making intelligent humanoid robots at scale is Tesla.
Because what you're saying is that AI is going to quickly surpass, at least in your estimation, the human's ability to control it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like to say no, but the answer is yes.
I'm very interested in designing a world that is equally usable by humans and by AIs.
In the last 10 years, AI has advanced 1 million times. When something is moving at 1 million times every 10 years, there's only one way that you can survive it. You've got to get on that spaceship.
Excuse me. You got to get on that spaceship. That's the NVIDIA CEO. We saw Sam Altman, which is CEO of OpenAI, ChatGPT. And then, of course, we saw a lot of Elon, or Elon 2.0, 3.0, who knows exactly. So in the noise, in the information war, in the 5th and 6th generation warfare, what is valuable is to distinguish the signal from the noise. There's a lot of noise. 95% of the information sphere is filled with noise. Things that are either not true or don't really matter. 5% is signal. And if you can distinguish and discern what the signal is, then you know exactly where to look and where to find the answers. So we can identify as human beings that are spirit-driven with an intact heart, we can identify that the greatest threat that we are facing is this not inevitable, but irreversible technocratic takeover. It hasn't happened in irreversible ways yet. And there are many groups, focus groups, think tanks, and do tanks that we occasionally get invited to and that we know are some together and some independently working on alternative systems to counter this thing. And the truth is that most of these think and do tanks and groups are missing the most important piece of the equation. And this is what we studied for the last 15, 20 years is how come, what happened that we allowed ourselves to get to this point? Because here's my interesting observation. Every single time throughout my life, when I was, let's say, invited to a legacy farm, a farm that has been in the hands of like smaller farms, not industrial farms, smaller farms, let's say a farmer that has lived that lifestyle all their life and for generations, or people that live very in tune with nature. You bring them the newest gadget, the newest technology, and they, I mean, at hand, completely and unequivocally reject it right away and have no interest, no use. And you actually have to talk them into it. You have to talk them into trying it out and basically telling them what kind of problems they have that they didn't even know were problems and what kind of solutions that would bring. But most everyone who lives even remotely in tune with nature rejects these new technologies, whether that was the 80s to 90s to 2000, doesn't matter what kind of technology they rejected. On the flip side, if you, however, bring a highly, let's just say, urban person who's very interconnected, lots of technology, used to the city and whatnot, if you bring them into a beautiful and vibrant natural environment, most of the time their reaction is profound. If you bring them into a beautiful flourishing garden with butterflies and flowers and food and fruit trees, or you bring them to a tropical beach, any kind of thriving, lush natural environment, they have a strong positive reaction. The longer they spend in that environment, the more beautiful their reactions become, by the way, which sort of, it's anecdotal proof and empirical proof that we are naturally wired to live a natural lifestyle. So the counter to the technocratic takeover is something that we've been now saying for years, but we're going to explain what that actually means in greater detail today. So the counter is, excuse me, that was the wrong one. This is the problem. There it is. There it is. The counter to all of this is BTBPVOY, which doesn't make for a very sexy acronym, but it stands for Become the Best Possible Version of You or of Yourself. And this is what we have been saying for so long. But believe it or not, so often, even though we talk about it often. People ask us, what does that mean? How do I do that? We've done retreats, we've done courses. Christina's coached people for many years. We've done trauma healing, one-on-one work for a long time. And the fundamentals were lost. So what does it mean to become the best possible version of ourselves, and why? And I'll give the why away in the beginning. Why is that the only counter? Because if you think about what I explained earlier, a person, a human being that lives a natural lifestyle is pretty much a very good version of themselves, right? Human being that is very plugged into the technosphere and lives a more artificial lifestyle, and which usually is accompanied, this is statistically speaking, by a form of, a depression, ADHD, whatever they call ADHD, and all these symptoms of the artificial lifestyle. Those people, with those symptoms and that lifestyle, they respond to new technologies incredibly fast. They love it. It's a new form to distract them. It's a better way to solve more of the artificial problems that their lives have created and whatnot. They're very, very addicted to the technological takeover. So you first have to help yourself and then others to shift over, reclaiming the natural power of who you are. Because when you really experience internally what that means, when you have these profound life-changing, earth-shattering experiences, your interest in the technocratic revolution will go away completely. You simply won't have the need, because you won't believe any longer that technology and AI and robotics and CRISPR and all these insane artificial methods are in any way, shape, or form helpful. So what we have to do, or what we suggest to do, is tapping back into the original blueprint. And this happens easiest in nature. This happens when you breathe into your body, when you start listening. What does it actually signal you? Where does it actually thrive? What are the environments that you actually experience yourself fully? And the interesting part is too, that, for example, when people step into nature for an hour, it has a very fast effect on their nervous system. When they step into nature for a day, it has a bigger effect. A week, now here things are beginning to change biochemically quite significantly. But if you are in such environments for longer periods of time, your rhythms begin to harmonize more with nature. It truly means you are becoming someone else. Not in a day, not if you do it every now and then, not so much. But if you put yourself in those spaces more often for longer periods of time, you are truly becoming someone else. You're becoming more of who you actually are. So this is the one thing. Healing trauma. I mean, we talk about this so often. And it is still something that humans are very hesitant to do. And it's not that it's not understandable. Nobody wants to revisit something that they don't even know happened, something painful, something harsh, something from their past. But healing trauma is like cutting off, you're a hot air balloon, basically. You're hovering up there and the ropes are still tied down to the ground. And once you cut them, which is basically the release, the healing of trauma, things begin to happen. You begin to rise very quickly. And then, of course, a return, which is a mid to long-term thing, a return to the land, a return to harmony with the land, food, breathing, stillness, community, art, the real things, right? So the truth is, and this is the only counter strategy, is that as we rise and as we become more of who we are, the technological realm loses its grip on us and eventually loses its grip entirely. I mean, this is the only strategy that we really see. Clearing the conditioning, and this is also something that, and I know we're growing. We have wonderful new viewers on board, and some of these things we've talked about a lot. Some of these things we need to talk about more. But the conditioning, basically, one that is so big is that technology equals progress, and progress as defined by society is something better. And these are the points where we need to reverse, heal our thinking, heal our conditioning. All of our upbringing, the education system from kindergarten to university, everything is aimed at shaping our belief systems and identifying with this artificial world, with what are presented to us as the must-haves and the needs and how it actually works. And so not long ago, somebody asked how to help, let's say, as spiritually inclined parents, how to help your children exist in the real world. And I knew what they were saying, but they were saying it backwards. The artificial world is not the real world by any stretch of the imagination. It's an artificial world. The real world, bless you, my love. The real world is spirit driven. It's natural. It's creative. It's creation. That's what the real world is. So another thing that keeps us in a direct relationship with the technocratic realm is fear, shame, feeling inadequate, having to keep up, being afraid that we're going to lose touch, that we're going to stay behind. And that is another programmed sort of mechanism that was literally given to us, where we always feel that if we don't keep up, we're going to be left behind. And we also have accepted that this constant change is actually good and natural, and that if things aren't constantly changing, that it's not good. And those are all not necessarily true statements. Not all change is created equal. And our world is literally only changing in one direction, and that is complete technological takeover. That's digital takeover. That's everything that's happening in terms of progress. A small minority of people are focusing on inner growth or inner expansion of consciousness, but actually the majority has become worse, right? The state of the world has become worse. And here's the big discrepancy where we need to be honest with ourselves, because that honesty shows us a beautiful side too, that those people who are literally stepping into their creator power, who are becoming the best possible version of themselves in all fields. And I'll let you know that specifically since 2020, we have seen people emerge that were already very successful in the matrix world, in the programmed world, but they have emerged because they couldn't compromise any longer. And so they have emerged as the best possible version of themselves with all the skill set that they acquired, but with full integrity for truth, for freedom, for love, for human consciousness. That's incredible. The doctors, the scientists, the teachers that have stepped into the space of truth and hence become the best possible version of themselves, which also means that they are creating radical sovereignty. By transmuting the fear, the programming, all that bullshit, you are creating radical sovereignty. We're going to get into that more. Purpose and courage. What would you be afraid of? As if you are a human being and you live 80, 90, maybe 100 years, everything is finite. Your body gets older. You lose some of the things that you could do in younger years. You feel like life is slipping away from you. Clearly, that is finite, and from that standpoint, we're afraid of losing out. But if we accept that we're infinite, courage isn't even the thing that we need to muster up. What would infinite spirit be afraid of? Like, why would it fear something if something, why would it fear something that cannot really touch it in a big scheme of things? And that, leads to the point where people are often careful about what they say. They don't want to upset someone or something by speaking the truth, by expressing what they really think, not understanding how much they're hurting themselves by swallowing down those words and not speaking them. Speaking truth is much more than just expressing yourself. It is showing yourself respect every single time that you open your mouth. Living in truth is the same thing. When we know the truth, but we don't live it. When we know the truth and we don't speak it. When we know the truth and we don't share it, we lose self-respect. We look sort of down upon ourselves and go, you're not courageous enough to do this. But spirit could never be not courageous. So that just means you're living more from human perception than spirit perception. And that's just a sign that we need to introduce purpose and courage into our lives again. And, living as if every choice, every thought, every vision, every worry even that you hold is shaping your reality, because it is. That is what becoming the best possible version of you means. It's to become aware of those things and actually implement them into your life. It's a true statement. In a world built on lies, living your truth, which is truth, not saying subjective truth, but living truth, is a revolution in and of itself. Embodied sovereignty is another thing. We all, and I include everyone here, present company included, we all fall for our desire to get certainty, to get the best guidance, to get experts' opinions. And while there is a valid case, if integrous people have a great body of knowledge and they share from that, sure, that is valid. But to take their word over our own intuition, or to take an AI's word over your own intuition, or anything for that matter, is surrendering sovereignty. And this is the sovereignty that matters the most. People, when they think of sovereignty, they sort of have this image of how much land they need to do that, and how they need to be politically independent and independent from the government and independent from all of that. But that's not where sovereignty begins. Sovereignty begins by being fully in tune with spirit again, and that being the guiding force in your life. And that's not just a cliche. It's not just something you say, it's something you live by. And your life changes dramatically if you do. I've known many people who live by pro-con lists, and they measure it out, they study it out, they stat it out, and then they have their stats and their likelihoods and their whatever, and then they make the decision that most aligns with the pros and not the cons. And if that's how they roll, good. But there's something much, much greater that can see far beyond statistics, far beyond probabilities, that can sense things that math can't do and probabilities can't do. And that's intuition. That is spirit-driven living. And so the best decisions that we have ever made were spirit-driven and completely illogical to others, which we didn't give a flying fuck about, so it didn't matter. But this is how most people live. They don't trust that guidance. Important, your gut is not your intuition. Your gut is your gut. There are certain emotional connections that happen in the gut. It's not a worthless guide, but it's not nearly as good as intuition. Your heart, as much as we want to believe it, is also not intuition. Your heart is the center for many feelings, up, down. Your heart is not your intuition either. Spirit is not dependent on any physiology, right? Spirit doesn't have to. So gut, for example, gut has a great safety reaction. If you're in danger, gut is a pretty good sort of judge of what to do, fight or flight. The heart can be very deceiving because of the many roller coasters that we experience with human feelings, but intuition is independent of all of that. It does not rely on past experiences. Intuition does not rely on human perception. It is something beyond human perception, and that is embodied sovereignty. When we step back to intuition, That's access to wisdom. That's access to a greater picture, and even access to infinite information. All of which, believe it or not, when we begin embodying it, I think AI, robotics, and those computer systems will simply look as primitive to us as they truly are. Because compared to what we're capable of, it is primitive. Regulating your nervous system, so that the external chaos does not touch you. This is where we learn to, and we have that to a certain degree, but we were taught that there is a autonomous nervous system that we can't have any influence over, and that those processes, anything from digestion to what your heart does and how your organs work, and cell recovery and cell reproduction, all those things are autonomous things. But that wasn't the truth. There is an autonomous system that is working, but we can regulate that system and we can influence that system. And the number one person in the Western world that has brought this information in practical ways out to the masses is Wim Hof. In other ways, guys like Joe Dispenza have too, but Wim Hof is the guy that sits you down and says, get on your ass and we're breathe, motherfucker. And his words, not mine. And where he teaches people through breath work how to tap into their autonomous nervous system and actually positively influence it, which is, I think, how we used to live. And then being absolutely rooted in your own principles, morals, and values, right? Specifically with the spiritual community and AI, there is such a campaign going on right now. We see this with the spiritual influencers and how quickly they are sort of jumping ship and jumping on the AI train and on the technology train, and how they're easily manipulated because they apparently are not very rooted in truth and morals and values. And I say this with a certain amount of judgment, even because you would expect more. You would expect more from someone that claims they're so aligned with truth, when the truth is, and I stand behind saying this unequivocally, we do not need AI and transhumanism to become the best possible version of ourselves. As a matter of fact, the antidote is to become the best possible version of ourselves. Energetic resilience, another really, really important thing to focus on, which means to start mastering and exploring your field. Literally, the field that we own, body biofield. There's a certain square footage here that you own that space in the energetic realm, and it's a space that is very valuable to many, many people right now that want to tap into it or are tapping into it. So we need to master that field again and own it and expel everything from it that isn't ours and isn't natural, whether that's technological, energetic. There's a very interesting thing that we recently participated in, was an energetic parasite removal of, something that I didn't think of in these words, but it's very accurate actually. Energetic parasite removal, but also learning how to raise your frequency consciously, which is an act of doing, not an act of just deciding on it. People say, oh, I live my highest vibe. And I go, well, how do you do that? Well, that's just my decision. I just think about it. I go, okay, that doesn't really do much. It just sort of gives you that, that Love and Light Brigade bumper sticker, but that doesn't really do much. You actually have to do the work that raises the frequency. And it's beautiful work, but it is work. It's showing up. It's doing the thing, not feeding or leaking our energy. And this is specifically what the show yesterday was about. Such events like these mass protests and violent riots and all the things that are happening around the world, when we invest emotionally, which is a human reaction, but when we do that, we get drained. we fall for those traps, division, addictions, outrage, and fear. And outrage, by the way, totally can become an addiction because the body experiences these adrenaline rushes. And so this is something we need to become very mindful of. And that doesn't mean necessarily that you do not show interest or are not informed, but the best people that navigate these fields in empowered ways, they can look at these things from a higher perspective and then add something positive to them, which, you know, basically means you're tuning into that eternal you that is calm. The eternal you realizes that none of this is totally serious. It is serious, but it's not totally serious because none of this ultimately can touch your spirit. Now, you will do your very best to be a source of inspiration and empowerment to others, but you realize ultimately you're detached enough that you realize that whatever happens here, it's not really real. Okay, and that is a fact. It's not really real. It's part of this grand orchestration here, but it isn't really real. And this taken as a mental concept can be dangerous, but experienced as a spiritual concept is empowering. If you only try to wrap your mind around this, you become apathetic. You become sort of, you know, indifferent. And that's not what that means at all. It's the opposite of being indifferent. It's the chop wood and carry water analogy, you know, that we use so often. So your primary focus then shifts from we need to fight the system to we're outgrowing the frequency that this system exists in. Is this just an esoteric concept, a spiritual concept, or does it actually have value in the practical world? Yes, it is a spiritual and esoteric concept, but it has actual value in the real world. And I want to say, before I move forward on that, I want to say that when I say your primary focus is not on fighting the system, that doesn't mean you should take shit. Never take shit, ever. You know, don't that's like, you know, stand your ground. Stand your ground. Don't take shit. But understand that you will be invited by the world into any given war at any given time, any given fight at any given time, because that's where the world needs you. Just stay fighting, and you'll never explore what's actually possible. So outgrowing your frequency, or the frequency of this realm, outgrowing the frequency of this realm means that you become incompatible with it. You're not at the same vibrational frequency than all these control systems are. It's not a carte blanche. It doesn't mean that you will not interface with it in some ways. It just means it doesn't have control over you. And that is, again, something you need to, or you need to, you don't need to do anything, but it's something that we have to embody on the spirit concept, on the spirit level, to really know what that means. But I can tell you that Kristin and I have moved over the last couple decades through various worlds. One of them was, for example, we were heavily involved in teaching people the difference between who they are and what the system is, the nature, the legal system, the maritime law, you know, all these things that entrap people and enslave people. And wouldn't you know it, we weren't very popular with certain folks in certain buildings. They didn't like that. And we were in situations many, many times where, for all intents and purposes, we shouldn't have walked away. There was just too much happening on a logical level for us to walk away and not be somehow troubled, detained, whatever. But every single time we did. And it was not because we talked our way out of something. It was more because we were energetically in a different space. And believe it or not, A parasitic system knows when the host isn't susceptible. At some point, it stops trying because the host won't let it in. A parasitic system cannot exist in certain conditions. That is a frequency principle. So it counts on you responding with fear. It counts on you giving away your power. It actually counts on you staying in low vibration because that's how it sustains itself. A parasite can't live on itself, and this system is a parasite. So you vibrating at a higher frequency, you're not letting the parasite in. It has nothing to attach itself to. And that's really where we master our field, we master our intentions, we master our experience, and we truly become the best possible version of ourselves. And here's where we get to that second part that I always say, because I hear people will say, well, that's easy for you to say, because they project some sort of conditions onto me. And then I say, hold on, let me make this easy for you. Let's kill all excuses right away. And you know what I'm going to say next? DWYC WWYHY YA, which is do what you can with what you have where you are. What the hell does that mean? Let's break it down. Do what you can. No one expecting you to do anything that you can't do. With what you have, you don't need more. You don't need anything different. Just what you have, where you are. No matter where you are, you can do something. And this is the biggest, there was the biggest excuse killer for me in my life. Knowing no more waiting for perfect or better conditions. It's people wait for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years or all their lives for conditions to improve so they can finally do something else. And you'll notice that these folks will tell you the same story for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. If only Carl would finally get a better job, I could do this. If only my mother wasn't such a pain in the ass. If only my spouse would support me more. Yeah, there's so many if onlys. But do what you can with what you have where you are is the excuse killer. Take that first step. Your current location is not a limitation. You don't have to wait for better conditions. Stop giving your power away. Just this morning and over the last days with the LA riots and some Trump tweets and some, the Q-tard universe came full throttle again, and it's happening, and Jassara and Asara is finally, all that. Stop giving your power to that bullshit. You know how long this has been around? For decades. These stories have been around for decades. That's the difference between, yeah. That's the Nisara Jassara, the quantum financial system is already online. Like, we've already transitioned. We're just not seeing it yet. It will be next weekend or October or last winter, or it's coming. It's happening. And this is the difference between having been, yeah. It's the difference between having been in this field for a few decades or a couple of years. When you're in it, the psyops, because mass arrests have been happening since the 90s, folks. Don't you know? Mass arrests in Congress, the military, and the executive branch have been happening for decades. The 90s, those things started coming up in obscure internet forums. There's an alliance, the good folks, they're arresting everyone. Yeah. Remember that photo of Fauci in handcuffs? Yeah, me neither. Just saying. Truth doesn't need a stage, it needs a voice. And some are called to do one thing and others are called to do another thing. But the truth needs to be spoken in every corner of the world, and it needs to be embodied everywhere in the world. And for that, we don't need much. We just need to be who we are, where we are. So be courageous. Speak the truth wherever, whenever you feel called to do so. Nobody is supposed to do everything. Most of the projects in our arena, sovereignty projects, never get off the ground because they want it all, the full package. We need all the healing systems, modalities. We need all the food growing modalities. We need an alternative currency. We need an alternative law enforcement system. We need all these. No. Just do one thing. Just do one thing today. One baby step today. One baby step tomorrow. One baby step the next day. Before you know it, you'll see the results. If you build a mountain of expectations, you'll freaking never get started. Focus on one thing, and I'll tell you which thing. The thing that most ignites your heart. You'll know what that is. For some people, it's finally getting started and growing their first plant, whatever. You're in an apartment, so what? There's pods. You don't have a balcony? Well, maybe close to a window, or look for a growing light. None of these are big things, and you can get started today. The excuses are built into the system. And those who thrive inside and outside of the system know this. Most people will find excuses. It's easier. It's easier to blame something or someone. It's easy to say that it's the system's fault. With the sky, that was years ago when we did those educational seminars. And we had a great team of people. You know, there was this guy who was a filmmaker, and he would come only to 2 events because we didn't really vibe with him. But he came out, and you know, he would go out every 10-15 minutes to smoke. And at one of these events, we had a similar sort of similarly enlightened guy to Wim Hof. He was also a very experienced teacher, meditator, and a little different, but he was also breatharian. So at any rate, after the seminar, this breatharian yogi type and the cameraman, who was a chain smoker, started talking. And the yogi type said to the cameraman, "Dude, why are you smoking? You think it's good for you? Like, do you feel like this is good?" And he was smoking some, you know, filtered cigarette, 128 chemicals in a type of cigarette. And the guy said, "Oh, you know, I would love to stop, but the system, it's all the system's fault. The system got me hooked on it. The system put this in my mind, blah, 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 blah." Well, the yogi type just started laughing and said, "You don't really believe that, do you? You're giving all your power to this beast there, and you're not taking any responsibility. You're just finding excuses." The guy went berserk. You know, he went really crazy. The cameraman, he felt like the yogi had no idea, and he was just oblivious. But the yogi type wasn't at all. He just knew what is human nature. We will spend decades finding excuses rather than finding pathways to make something happen. That's a lot of us in a lot of human nature. But when you do what you can with what you have where you are, that excuse time is over. This is, by the way, the moment where change or momentum happens. And starting Monday is the most popular and most safe way to never get started. Starting right now is the only option. So when you log off this live stream here, or this video when you watch it later, and you invest the next 10 to 15 minutes in some step that you can take today to improve yourself and your situation, you'll feel great empowerment, whatever that step is. But do it now. The revolution does not start out there. It has always started in here. And it was a beautiful quote that we posted today. I'll read it to you. It's a little it's a little triggering, like so many things to people are, but here it is. The only person that's coming to save you is the version of yourself that's tired of your current situation. Let me repeat that. The only person that's coming to save you is the version of yourself that's tired of your current situation. So it really depends on us. And I'll now bring this back full circle. We have no technological system in place currently that could counter where the world is going technologically. And like I said, groups all over the world are feverishly trying to come up with these systems, overlooking the most powerful answer that has to come first. Who are we while we're building these systems? Are we an angry version of ourselves? Are we a disempowered version of ourselves? Are we a low vibrational version of ourselves? Are we a limited version of ourselves? Or are we stepping into the infinite possibility that we actually are on the spirit level? Are we tapping into that? Are we beginning to experience it? Why do you think, what inspires us to show up like we are every single day? To sometimes repeat ourselves over and over again. Because we've seen what happens when someone taps into it and actually experiences it, rather than just, here's my words. My words are my words. But to have the experience of feeling who you really are, even for just 10 seconds or 30 seconds, you will never forget it. Never, ever. And you will never, ever believe that you need all the crap to make your life happy, fulfilled, or even working. And this is the exponential solution. And while you're out there in the media sphere, they'll tell you that Trump is it, and Q is it, and the White Hats are it, and Musk is it, and the Alliance is it, and the Galactic Federation is it, and I don't know, the Intergalactic Association of UFOs, or whatever people come up with. Anything to not accept that you already are the shit. You're the shit and you're the shift. Why is that so hard to understand? Why is it so hard to accept? So, tomorrow, most likely we'll be here. And we'll share this message again in another way. That's all there's to it. And I'll say this last but not least. People have said, you know, when I look at y'all's numbers here, you know, subscribers and whatnot, there's an interesting trend. When we analyze this, people come and some people stick around for a year and then they sort of vanish. And I say, well, that's usually my favorite thing to hear, because so many times we've received emails and those emails said, I just want to let you know, I used to be an avid viewer. We used to watch your channel, and it clicked on episode 1302. It clicked, and we realized all this guy's saying is that we already have it within us. And that's what the email usually says. My wife and I, or my parents and I, my kids and I, whatever, we made XYZ changes. And our lives are completely different now. Like, everything is flowing in a completely different direction. And I didn't even believe it was possible before. Yeah. That's exactly what this vehicle here was created for. Not to be some source of perpetual entertainment. This is a shift moment. And all of us who have agreed to be here for this shift moment, we're just reminding each other of that. So I'll close with this. You deserve all the goodness that you give yourself permission to receive. You deserve all the goodness that you give yourself permission to receive. All right, my friends. What are we announcing?
The workshop.
Oh.
Or retreat is a way better.
Okay. So we're very, very soon going to officially announce, but this is a pre-launch announcement. inspired, moved, touched, and just really, I don't even know how to put it. Just, I was overwhelmed actually by your beautiful comments when we talked about sort of the after awakening symptoms, which for many are stagnation, emptiness, not knowing where to move forward, how to move forward, sort of that spiritual tiredness, all of those things. We were really inspired by your honesty, and Kristin and I decided, you know, we want to address this. We want to support people through this because we've been there, and give them tools that they can use. And then we thought of, okay, let's do a retreat. And when we started looking for spaces, and I started thinking about spaces, and then I thought, no, there's so many viewers all over the world. Let's not limit it this time to a physical space. Let's do an online retreat. So we're going to do it. It's the second weekend in July. That much I think we know. It's the After Awakening Retreat. And we're going to soon open registration. We just wanted to let you know it's going to be a 2-day thing where we're going to spend 2 days going deeper. We're going to do breath work. We're going to do meditations and give you very concrete tools, not for a specific outcome, but to move towards that outcome, and having tools that you can actually use every day, honoring where you are, each and every one of you individually in your journey, and honoring that might be a different space and different place, not judging it for what it is. That's the After Awakening Retreat. So we're going to, in the next few days here, we're going to open registration. Just kind of wanted to put it out there. It's happening. And we so look forward to this. It's totally a spirit thing. We were out doing the workout actually, and I could barely finish the workout because I was so inspired when this came through, this whole download thing. And so, yeah, we can't wait for this to unfold, and it's going to be beautiful. I think it's going to be a great shift retreat. So this is it from us for today. Longer show than usual. Do what you can with what you have, where you are, to be the best possible version of you. That's all. Much love, my friends. Many blessings. And we will be back with you again. Very, very.
Your environment shapes everything, your thoughts, your health, your energy. But most people never question the invisible field they live in. We did, and that's when FLFE found us. It's not a product, it's a field of pure life force energy that lifts everything it touches. We now live in it 24/7, and we would love to invite you to experience it too. Start your free 15-day trial now. No pressure, no strings attached. Just the truth, resonance, and peace.